of the Innovation Grant Mentoring Programme. The Innovation Grant Mentoring Programme is a programme which provides innovation business support when it's funded by Norfolk, Suffolk and Essex County Councils. Our aim is to increase awareness to innovative businesses in the region around research and development. We also offer bespoke innovation mentoring and bid writing coaching towards innovation funding, which I'll talk to you all about later. Please note that the session today is being recorded and we'll be sending out the link to the recording to everyone that's registered to the session. Let's start by going through the agenda for today. We're joined by Colm Liz and Liz Flint, who will be discussing what is innovation funding and how it drives R&D and market success, as well as giving hints and tips for funding call applications. Following this, I'll be then talking to you about the Innovation Grant Mentoring Programme, the support we offer and how we can assist businesses. If you have any questions throughout the webinar, please add them to the Q&A throughout the session and we'll answer these at the meeting at the end of the meeting. And we aim to close the meeting just before 2 o'clock. So look forward to delivering this session to you this afternoon. Hope you find it really valuable. I'd now like to hand over to Colm and to also Liz. Colm and Liz both work for us on the programme. They are two of our innovation mentors and help us deliver the one-to-one bespoke support which we provide. So I'll pass over to Colm and Liz. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you, Laura. Hi, my name's Colm Watling. Don't worry about pronunciation or spelling. I stopped worrying a long time ago. I'm working here today with Liz Flint. We're joining you from another part of the country. We're actually down on the Isle of Wight today, working in the Isle of Wight's Innovation Centre. And we're going to be helping today to talk you through some stuff about Innovate UK, how it works, how you get your funding, what the best places to go to, some hints and tips, things to avoid, that sort of stuff. I used to work for Innovate UK. I used to be a regional manager for them. I've worked in universities, I've worked in industry. I've won a few grants over the years. So I think I'm in a good place to tell you what to do and perhaps more importantly, what not to do. Liz, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Yes, so fairly similar background to Colm in that I've spent a long time around the UK innovation system. I've worked at Innovate UK, I've worked in universities, and I've worked in small businesses. These days I run my own small consultancy and I stay connected with all of those, both through the Innovation Grant Mentoring Programme to help to grow and through doing some work for Innovate UK as a monitoring officer. So like Colm, I like to think I'm fairly well connected into the innovation system, which we'll be talking you through today.
Brilliant. So Laura, we were going to start with a bit of audience participation, weren't we? And we were going to ask the people on the call a few things about their experience with Innovate grants. Could you put that poll up for us, please, Laura?
Yes, of course, we'll launch that now.
Brilliant. So you'll see in the chat there, in the meeting chat, a couple of questions about innovation funding. So the first question there is, if you've applied for innovation funding before, were you successful? It would be great to get your feedback on that. Okay. We've got a comment in the chat that someone can't hear us. So obviously you can, Laura. Everybody else can? There we go. Good. It's a picture of your dog, Liz.
It's okay. That's not what people are saying.
Okay.
Can hear now. Good.
Brilliant. That's all working. Good. Okay. Right, so.
Can't see the poll. Okay.
Okay. I think we've got a few answers to that one. Laura, I can't see the answer. Can you read it out for me?
Yes, of course. I'll just wait for a few more results to come through.
Brilliant.
While you're waiting, Laura, can you confirm that you're still seeing our slides?
Yep, can see the slides and I
Excellent.
can hear. So hopefully all the settings are
Okay.
right.
Hopefully the slides just moved as well. Important.
Yes, that's right. Yes,
Good,
it's
good.
always worth checking these things, isn't it?
Good.
Never
Yes.
know with Teams.
Okay.
Okay, I'll go through the results there. Have you ever applied for innovation funding? Got 24% have said yes and 76% no.
Okay, that's brilliant. And the next question we were going to ask was?
The next question is, have you applied for innovation fund? If you've applied for innovation funding, were you successful?
Yeah.
And we've got 17% that have, sorry, it's changed. It's going up, which is good. We've had 21% that were successful with innovation funding.
Okay. That's a pretty good number, I have to say.
That's really good.
Yeah, well done, folks. That's a good hit rate for your region.
Yeah.
Have you applied for innovation funding more than once? And we've got 17% that have said yes and 21% saying no.
Okay, brilliant. That's all really good information, guys. Thank you very much indeed. Okay, good.
We've got one last
Carry
poll.
on.
Should I put the last one up
Please.
as well? So this wasn't, have you seen an innovation funding call that you want to currently work on or apply into? So we'll just launch that.
And of course, this is a moving target because innovation stuff comes on and off all the time. In fact, those of you who are quick to spot some of the reaction to the budget yesterday would have seen Innovate UK launched quite a big competition right in the middle of the budget speech. They were very keen to get that out yesterday. So this stuff happens all the time. Okay. Good. Brilliant. That's really helpful information, guys. That puts us in the right place for the rest of the presentation and gives the team at Norfolk County Council something to work on as well. That's great. So, looking at our agenda today, we have a short amount of time to rattle through a fair bit of slides, so the pace will be fairly quick. These slides will be coming out to you after the session, so don't feel you need to take any notes. So we're going to talk about innovation, what it is. We're going to talk about what sort of funding is available. We're going to go quite deep into Innovate UK, or at least as deep as we can in the time. Why you should apply and perhaps why you should not apply, when you should apply, and then some of the detail around how to make this easier for you, because it's a terrible process sometimes, and some of the tips we're going to give you will make it a little bit easier. Okay, so we've done that already. So here's just a word cloud around what people think innovation is. There's loads of interesting words on there. There is creativity in it. There is vision and ideas and brainstorming and change and all kinds of stuff. It's become a bit of a catch-all innovation now. You don't see anything that isn't innovative, especially in government circles these days. But I've got a slightly better definition than that on the next slide. That's a bit dull. I'm not going to read that out, but it's a good thing to think about. It's practical, it's new stuff, and it ends up in goods or services. Okay, that's the thing to think about. Okay, so it's not invention. Next slide, please. There we go. This is the definition that I tend to use. So invention is the art of turning money into ideas, and ideally somebody else's money. Okay, so that's a lot of the way that the government think that the innovation landscape work is that invention takes a lot of government money, a lot of investment. It tends to happen in research and technology organisations. It tends to happen at universities, and it creates new ideas. It creates intellectual property. But innovation is the art of turning those ideas into money. Okay, so it's not creating new stuff necessarily. It's connecting it with the market and doing it profitably. And that's the heart of the government funding in this. We take some money from taxation, we put it into innovation grants. Those grants help companies grow and scale and employ more people and generate more tax revenue for the government. Ultimately, they want the economy to grow. So that's the whole thing. The example given there over on the right-hand side is is Edison's light bulb, okay? Until it became useful for consumers, until it became a useful thing that people could buy in the shops and would last and would meet their needs, it wasn't really an innovation. It was more of an invention. I hope that makes sense. Okay, on we go. Good. So it's an expensive pastime, innovation. We need money for all kinds of reasons. We need to do the ideation in the first place, to think about what's missing from the market, to think about what we could do with this new piece of technology. Or if we take technology from another place and we bring it into what we do, how will that change our product range? How will that change what we do? A really important step in successful innovation is to spend time with customers, to worry about things like value propositions, to worry about initial trials, to get into focus groups, to do all those things with your customers. So often, in my experience and in Liz's experience, we see people building a thing that they're absolutely convinced the customers will want, that the market will want. They're successful in getting grants, they're successful in getting funding, and they build a thing that they want to build. And then they're really surprised when people don't want to buy it. Great example for some of us who are a little bit grayer around the temples is the Sinclair C5. What an amazing innovation that was that nobody wanted. We need money to get these things into products and services. You may be familiar with technology readiness levels, a concept developed by NASA in the 60s to describe a new piece of technology's journey from idea into practical implementation. It takes a long time. And it takes an awful lot of investment to get a thing from a bench into a product that's actually working, can be serviced, can be sold, can be distributed, can be fixed, all that kind of stuff. Marketing is a really important thing to get to market from. I've built it and it's available to sale, to getting people to say, yes, I can see it, I get it, and I want to buy it. That takes a lot of money. And Innovate UK and a lot of government agencies get a bit weird about the word marketing and the use of taxpayers' money to do what we would consider to be marketing. So we'll talk about that a bit later. And then, of course, the innovation project, the idea of creating this new service or this new product, that isn't a business, that's part of a business. And a business has overheads, and a business has salaries to pay, and a business has all kinds of costs. So there's no point getting to this just about to sell something and going out of business. So we need money to keep us going while the innovation is coming through the process. Okay, so apart from government, well, who else could we go and get some of this money from? Well, a really straightforward list: friends and family, people you know, people who want the products, people who are really keen, the early adopters, the people that will queue outside the Apple store for 3 days so they can get the latest iPhone, the people who really want the new stuff. We can go to business angels, and there may well be well-developed business angel networks in your part of the country. We can go to VCs. VCs get a lot of stick. VCs are often portrayed as the nasty end of the innovation system. But if you need millions of pounds, you know, that's a good, you're going to end up talking to these people. We can just go straight out onto the internet. We can crowdfund. We can do advanced sales through sites like Kickstarter and stuff like that. People we've never met will fund us. As well as the government, there's a lot of charity involvement in this, particularly in philanthropic stuff, in environmental stuff, in societal change. There are charities running enormous pots of philanthropic money to help people create innovations that will do good. And then, of course, there's the government, your own taxpayers' money recycled into innovation to help the country's economy grow. All of these people have different reasons as to why they would fund you. And I think that's really important when you start considering what we're going to try and apply for, what we're going to try and get funding for, is to make sure we're matching what the funder wants with what we want to do, so that we're all aligned and we're going to be in this for the long term, and we all really understand that we're trying to pull together. If you get into an adversarial relationship with your funders, things go pear-shaped fairly quickly. So start at the top there. Your friends and family will fund you because they like you and they want you to succeed. So that's a personal thing. Your early adopters want new, shiny stuff. Your angels are often retired people or nearly retired people. So they want to make a return on their investment, but they also want to help out. And that can be really useful because as well as the money, as well as the technology, as well as the marketing, networks really help. As I've got older, networks become more and more important in getting stuff done. Your venture capitalists just want to make money. And they know that most startups fail and most innovations fail. So they're going to put money into a whole range of startups, and a lot of them are not going to work. So the ones that do work have to cover the costs of the ones that didn't. So the terms that they will try and get you to sign up to in return for their money might seem a little steep, but you need to consider it from across their portfolio. You're convinced your innovation is going to work, but statistically, the VCs are going, they don't all work. We need to make money on the ones that do. The complete strangers, the crowd cubes, the Kickstarters, these guys want to be involved as well as to get their money back. You know, again, they like to think of themselves as angels in some ways. And you'll see that on Crowdcube if you've looked at that particular platform. When you make an investment, they do say, can you help the company with it, referrals, with advice? So they're quite into that. A charity has aims to fulfill. They've got a charter of all the things they said they want to do. And so they're going to fund you to help them fulfill their stated aims. That's really important, so that when you look at applying to a charity or a philanthropic organisation, you articulate what it is you want to do in the way that they are expressing the way they want to fulfill their aims. So there's a lot of digging to be done there. The government are the same. They want to fulfill their aims, and their aims are pretty explicitly stated. Jobs, wealth, GDP, inclusivity, carbon. And more recently, there's been a bit of a change in the innovation system. You may have noticed political developments in the eastern part of Europe. The government is becoming more and more interested in security and defence applications. So the government are keen on that, and they're putting money into innovation in that space. So how would they get that money to you? If you've convinced them that you can help and that everyone's aligned, how would they do that? So friends and family will just write you a check, or these days, I'm showing my age there, these days they'll just transfer some money across to your bank account. Your early adopters, because they want new things, that could be government as well as people. So Kickstarter, I've mentioned. If you go and look around the Innovate UK place, you'll find things called, what used to be called SBRI, the Small Business Research Initiative, but is now called Contracts for Change, or Contracts for Innovation, rather. So these are government departments that want to buy a thing that doesn't exist yet. So they can't go and get 3 quotes. They can't operate their normal procurement processes. So they will do a contracts for change thing with you, contracts for innovation thing with you, and they will buy the innovation from you. The Ministry of Defence works in a very, very similar way through some of their quick funding mechanisms. The angels will get their money to you normally. It might be through an individual, but often they operate as syndicates. So you'll get a group of angels coming together to fund you. The VCs will put you through all manner of due diligence hoops to make sure that they are protecting their investment or protecting the investment of the people they got their money from, because it's not normally their money, it's normally a bunch of funds that are putting money into VCs. Complete strangers will do stuff through crowdfunding. Have a look at the Crowdcube website. That's a really interesting 5 minutes you can spend on there, looking at what other innovators are promising in order to get some money from the crowd. Charities will put you through some sort of application process, and the government, they've got local mechanisms. So there's a lot of devolution in innovation these days. Mayoral authorities are getting pretty big innovation budgets. The devolved administrations have pretty big innovation budgets. But Innovate UK operates across the whole country, and they've got quite a big, long process, and we're going to talk about that as we go through this presentation.
It's me next.
Okay.
So we said we talk about grants. What actually is a grant? It's money. It's free money from the government. You have to remember that government and the government funding bodies tend to think in terms of projects. So it's not free money to fund your business and all of its activities. It's to deliver a specific project. That will have a time frame around it. It will have a budget attached to it. So you'll have some parameters in which you have to work. They'll put out a funding call. telling you what the maximum and minimum limits are, and then you can submit what you think you need within those limits. Now, the wonderful thing is you haven't got to pay this back. This isn't a loan. The only time when you have to pay the money back is if you commit fraud or if you fail to do what you said you'd do. If you don't do all of the activities and you don't deliver any of the outcomes, they'll say, no, you're not having any money for that. It's taxpayers' money. We agreed to spend it on certain things that you promised. You also don't have to give up any equity in your company. So you don't have to pay it back and you don't have to give up equity. This is genuinely free money. And sometimes it also comes with extra support on top. Some of the Innovate UK funding competitions come with a wraparound support package of business mentoring, access into other schemes that, for example, might help you prepare for raising investment from some of the people Colm was just talking about. So the funder will put out a call or a competition in a particular sector, focused on particular major strategic goals the government has, with certain shapes and sizes in terms of duration and amounts of money around it. That's the scope of the competition. They will explain that in detail. You propose a project that fits. That's very important. People try and shoehorn projects into the wrong competition. There is no point. You are wasting your time. Don't do it. So you propose a project that fits, it goes out for assessment, and they'll decide whether or not to offer you funding. Assessment for Innovate UK produces some really useful feedback, actually. So typically, your proposal will go out to 3 or 5 assessors. Occasionally, it's 1 for the very small competitions. It's normally 3 or 5. They will go through the scoring process, so you'll get scores back, and you'll also get comments under each of the assessed areas. Now, when you get the comments back, your initial reaction is usually, oh, they're a bunch of idiots. They clearly didn't understand how brilliant my idea was. I've been there. I've had a failed funding bid come back, and I've read the feedback and been frustrated. Once I'd gone and cooled down a bit, looked at it again the next day, actually, they were spot on. Okay, so I then had a second go in a slightly different funding competition with essentially the same project, having addressed the points they brought up in the feedback, and I won the funding the second time. So the feedback is a genuinely useful part of this process. The other thing to know about grants is they're normally paid in arrears. So that means it can be quite a long time between you starting the project and you getting any money. Okay, you have to be able to cash flow the project. So the way they generally work is you start, you do 3 months of work, making purchases, paying staff, whatever your costs are. At the end of the 3 months, you submit a claim for the government grant funding body to repay the money you've spent in those 3 months. That goes through a checking and approval process, and you get that money that you spent in months 1 to 3 back in your bank account. Month 4, if you're lucky, normally month 5. So it's really important to know that you're going to need to be able to cash flow that project. So don't bite off more than you can chew. If you're going to make a big step up, think about where are you going to get the money to pay for possibly 5 months of effort before you get the money for the first 3. So in terms of how it works, as I said, there's a funding competition or a call that normally comes out. There are certain types of funding where it's a rolling deadlines. Basically, it's always open. There's just periodic cut-offs when they go, right, what have we had so far? Let's go and assess those as a batch. But it's essentially open all year. Go through that assessment process. What happens then is that you'll get the wonderful email you've been waiting and hoping for saying, congratulations, your application's been successful. We're going to offer you the grant. What people sometimes don't know happens next is there's actually quite a big due diligence process that sometimes happens after that point. There's very good reasons why Innovate UK and other funders do this. They have certain legal obligations in terms of not funding enterprises in distress. So in other words, a business that basically would go bust without the grant. They are not allowed to give you a grant if the grant is the only thing that's keeping you going. They also need to make sure that there's they do the checks around money laundering. They'll be looking to see that for proof that you can cash flow the grant process, and basic things about being a legitimate business. They'll also do things like ask you if you're using any subcontractors, who they are, so they can do some checks on them. And they'll ask you for a bit more detail about how you intend to exploit the outputs of the project when you get to the end. As I said, cash flow. Occasionally, you get upfront payments, which does really help with the cash flow issue. That only happens on the small grants, and it is only on some of them. So don't go into this process expecting there's going to be upfront payment. Most of them are not, but a few are. And similarly, don't expect that 100% of the cost of your project is going to get funded. There are 1 or 2 competitions that do that, quite often the ones with upfront payments actually. But most of the projects, and certainly the bigger ones, the funder will pay for anything between 40 and about 75% of the project costs, and there's various ways in which that's calculated. So again, as well as thinking about cash flow, you also need to think about how are you going to match funds that remaining portion of the cost of the project. And those are all things that, you know, can help you work through in the mentoring part of this programme. Expect that you're going to have to make regular reports. They might be a little bit more bureaucratic than you're used to doing internally. If you're a small company, there might be a greater level of detail and formality than you might already have in place. So treat that as an opportunity to make a sort of a maturity step in terms of internal reporting as well. You'll need to have review meetings. None of your claims to have the funding refunded will be approved until all of that reporting has been sent and considered acceptable. So you've got to be on top of this, because otherwise it delays you getting the money. So just to sort of summarise, pros and cons of seeking grant funding. Obviously, the great thing is it's free money. You're not giving up equity, you haven't got to pay it back. I think most of us will accept a fair degree of other pain in order to have free money that we haven't got to pay back and that doesn't cost us equity. I think grants are a great way of accelerating your plans. They're not the thing to go for that product or service that you want to get to market 6 months from today. That's the wrong timescale. But if there's something on your development plan that you're thinking, oh yeah, maybe the back end of next year or 18 months or so, we'll be able to bring that one forward and we'll be able to work on that, because it'd be great for us if we can do it. A grant is a really good way to accelerate those kinds of ideas that are not your most immediate burning priority, but they're the thing that will really make a difference. And having this money can bring it forward. It'll allow you maybe to recruit more staff, things like that. As I said, you get helpful feedback in the assessment process, and just having the badge of approval of we have won funding from Innovate UK, that does make a difference quite often. Sometimes even with the venture capitalists there, they take the view, okay, some experts in that field have really scrutinised this project at application stage. They've said, yeah, this is good stuff. You've then delivered everything you said you'd deliver, and you've got a great product or service as a result. And as I said, there's wider support. The downsides, you do need to find match funding. You do need to think about cash flow. You do need to be really on top of the reporting and the paperwork. The application process, Innovate UK, we're always working to try and make this smoother, easier to deal with. They have extra support in place if anyone has particular needs and constraints that make the standard process less accessible. They do have accessibility support available. So if the process feels like something you genuinely can't deal with due to a disability or whatever, you can contact Innovate UK and seek support. The timescale is slow. Okay, between seeing a competition coming out and starting your project, you probably need to assume it's going to be the best part of 6 months before you get up and running. There's the period that the competition's open, the period in which the bids are being assessed, then there's the due diligence period before you get to sign your grant offer letter and get going. It's sometimes quicker than 6 months, but I would err on the side of caution and assume 6 months, and then if it's 4, happy days. Okay, this is back to Colm.
Brilliant. Okay, so if we've decided that this is something for us, we haven't put you off completely. How do we go about finding where we can get some money from this system? So, yeah, Innovation Funding Service is one of the first websites I'd look at, but I'd also look at Innovate UK's hub, and we'll come to these later on in the presentation. Use your networks. You know, people's feeds show them different things. My feeds are pretty well attuned now that every morning there's my inbox is full of interesting things that I might want to apply for myself or help my colleagues apply for. There are two Innovate UK outfits that you should make yourselves known to: Innovate UK Business Connect and Innovate UK Business Growth. They used to be the Enterprise Europe Network and the Knowledge Transfer Network. That's going back a few years now. So these are field forces of people paid for by Innovate UK to help businesses to connect with their ecosystem, to show them where the money is, to say when they should apply, when they shouldn't apply, all that kind of stuff. So Google those guys and make yourself known to them. Find the right people within there to help your business, help your sector. When we've sort of begin to find the right sort of things to apply for, Liz mentioned earlier on, don't just say, this is what I want to do. There's a grant call that looks like it might work. I'm going to shoehorn my project into that. Innovate are very wise to that. So what we're going to do is find a call that is a really good fit. So if you've got an idea that you want to work for your business, it might not be the first grant call that you see, the first fund you see. It might be the second, it might be the third. Sometimes it might take a while for a call to come through that will fit you, but you'll know it when you see it, and there are people around you to help. Me and Liz are here to help, Laura's here to help. We're trying to make sure that you maximise the fit to call, okay? And the reason for that is the success rates in Innovate UK funding vary. Sometimes they can be very, very low. The SMART competition that we'll talk about later on, its success rate at the end of it was small single digits. It was 3 or 4%, and nobody wanted that. But if you got good fit to call, it could be 33%. It can be really high success rates. So that's one of the first things we want to really get you to think about is not I can apply to this grant call for the project I want to do, but should I? Because you're going to be putting an awful lot of effort and man hours and sweat into these grant applications. Everybody wants you to have a good chance of success. Okay, so that's Innovate UK's website. Go and find them. Innovate UK are part of UK Research and Innovation. That's quite important. They didn't used to be part of UKRI. There used to be a thing called the Technology Strategy Board, and they were there simply to fund businesses to do research and development. Then about 4 years ago, they got subsumed into UKRI, UK Research and Innovation. So they're now part of the same system that funds university research and research in a wide range of fields across the UK. So they're a small part of the big innovation machine, and they're much more responsive to what central government wants out of innovation than they used to be. That's worth bearing in mind. Okay, so to illustrate where they fit in that, here's all the things that the government fund through UKRI, and those are pretty big numbers, but a lot of it is biased towards the research councils that are funding stuff in university. In Innovate UK land, you can see that there's 970 million last year going out to businesses. It's still a big chunk of money, but in the overall context of the research and innovation budget in the UK, not as big as you might think, okay? Now, what does that mean? That means that there's more money going into universities. Academia get more money than Innovate UK. And so you might want to think about, is there within my business a relationship with the university, or should there be a relationship with the university? One of the grants we've been successful with in the Innovation Grant Mentoring Programme in Norfolk was a great collaboration between a local business and the university, and the funding wouldn't have happened unless that collaboration was strong. So you might want to think about a relationship with academia, but only if it makes sense, not just for getting money out of Innovate UK. Universities are really good at some stuff and they're really bad at other stuff. So you need to go into a relationship with a higher education institution, understanding if that's the right thing for your business. So yeah, the Norfolk example is iBoxit. That's up on Laura's Innovate Grant Mentoring Programme website. Have a look at what we did with John there and what he got from that. Okay, so let's talk about where we can go about finding a grant and how we go about winning it in a bit more detail. So another website you should look at is up there now, which is the Innovation Hub. This is Innovate UK's attempt to put all the government funding for innovation in one place. So you'll see in there stuff from the British Business Bank, you'll see startup loans, you'll see export support, you'll see all kinds of stuff all in the one place. And it's quite a good navigation system. So find the innovation hub at some stage and have a quick play with that. Okay. These guys, Innovate UK Business Connect, that's their website at the moment. Go onto that. There are experts in every field that Innovate UK funds. Then their names, email addresses and photographs are up on there to find the guys that Innovate UK employ to work in your field, to understand what competitions are coming up, what the government wants to fund, how it wants to fund it. And these guys will give you advance notification of the competitions that are coming insofar as they know. And they will sit with you. They are paid to sit with you and turn your ideas into fundable propositions. They'll even sit down with you and look at your grant applications and say, well, I wouldn't do that. I might change this. So really well worth finding out who the right person to be in contact with at Business Connect is. Okay, so there's a huge variety of calls, and all of them are in the same place. The Apply for Innovation Funding Service, or IFS as we love to call it. So go on there, you'll see that just yesterday there was a Women in Innovation competition launched in the middle of the budget speech. And you'll see underneath that there's some stuff in what used to be APC, what they call Advanced Propulsion Centre. But now, so there's a load of funding there for autonomous vehicles and electric vehicles and things like that. So the point I want to make there is that some sectors are much more active than others. If you think about what the government is trying to do, clean growth, diversity, healthy ageing, things like that, there'll be more money available for government priorities than there will be for generic innovation. Okay? Once you've figured out where that website is, set your alerts up, look at things like that, go back to it every couple of weeks and have a look, and then wait for the right thing to come along. Don't necessarily go, oh, I can see something that might be applicable and go piling in. That's the route to a low success rate, loads of work and loads of frustration. Okay, so have a read of those things. Here's a good example of a recent competition. Agri-food and food tech in Eastern England. So the government quite concerned about food security. They realise that food is grown in different different parts of the country. So they set up something specifically for the East of England. So that's just simply an example there, and it tells you what the description is, what the sort of things they're trying to fund, how much they're going to put into that, and how much money is. And there's pages of stuff in there. They'll tell you what the competition is, who's eligible to apply. Eligibility is incredibly important. If you get that wrong, all your work on making a grant application goes to naught, because you've got to be eligible. The next thing you've got to worry about is scope. Innovate UK get really weird about the word scope, and it means lots of different things to lots of different people. But they're trying to say what they'll fund and what they won't fund. Now, if you're right in the middle of their scope description, you're in a good place. If you're on the edge of their scope description, not a great place. They'll show you the dates of the competition, when your application's got to be in for, when everything will finish. Things to watch there are financial year ends. If a competition or it looks like the funding ends at the end of a financial year, that tells you something about how flexible they can be with budgets. Okay, they tell you how to apply, and there's a load of supporting information in there. So that example call to read every word they're giving you there and to understand it is going to take a couple of hours to read through, just to see, is that really the sort of thing I should be interested in? Thank you. Okay, another example there, DCMS growth. So DCMS, Department for Culture, Media and Sport. That's worth bringing up. Innovate UK have their own money, but Innovate UK also use other government departments' money to go through the Innovate UK system. So this isn't Innovate UK money, this is DCMS money, but they use the Innovate UK grant application system and process and administration process to do that. The other reason I wanted to put that up there is that this is a cultural sector thing, a creative sector thing, but also investor partnerships are part of this. So this is the sort of far end of the TRL spectrum, the technology readiness level spectrum, where Innovate are crowding in private money. So you're getting a grant, but you're also getting an introduction to an investor who wants to put some money in. Okay, so Innovate do grants, they do loans, and they do investor partnerships. So there's a spectrum there of different things that will suit different businesses at different stages of their growth cycle. Okay, so
is it on me or is it
you can do this.
I'll do this one. You have a breath. Okay, so a standard Innovate UK competition will have 10 core questions, if you like. Only a couple of them are about your innovation and the need for it. Okay, we'll show you the specific questions later. Across all of those questions and the other parts of the application, the things you have to demonstrate first and foremost are alignment to the scope. The first thing they will look at is that, and if you are ruled out of scope, it doesn't even go to an assessor. Okay, so no matter how good everything else you've written, if you haven't done a good job of explaining how your project fits the scope, it's gone. So that's the first priority. Then obviously, of course, they're interested in your innovation, but also in the business case for it. They're not interested in funding cool stuff for the sake of cool stuff. They're interested in cool stuff that is going to make it to market, that is going to help a UK business to grow, and that's going to be a positive story for the government and a good return on investment for taxpayers' money. So that means the value proposition has to be solid. The plan for your R&D, your work plan, your Gantt chart has to be really credible. I said earlier, I got a grant a little while ago myself, but I failed at the first time of asking. And the feedback from the assessors was, that's too ambitious to do in 1 year. And you know what? They were dead right. It was too ambitious to do in 1 year. I scaled it back a little bit, resubmitted, and they said, yeah, we believe that is a credible plan for this 12 months. You also need to think about, if you're working with other people in a consortium, it's got to be the right people. Okay, and this can work two ways. Don't let somebody else rope you in to be a name on their bid if it's a bad fit for you, just so they can get the money. But if you're seeking partners, make sure they really are right for you and that the working relationship is solid from the start. We'll touch on that a bit more later. You also need to be able to make the case that government support, taxpayers' money, is needed, which essentially boils down to, this is too early stage and too risky for the bank to lend me money. That's often it. And it's often that if we didn't have some support from the government, this is going to take a very, very long time to come to market. You know, we have many priorities that we're trying to juggle. We can accelerate to market with some support, or we would never get there at all without it. So you need to be really clear about why that is and make that really solid. And the right kind of risk, that bullet point always makes me smile, because what is the right kind of risk? Well, it's about not being so risky as to have an incredibly low chance of succeeding, because that sounds like a bad investment. But equally, if it's something that's almost nailed on, guaranteed to succeed, why does that need government support? You know, the private sector can just get on and do that with their normal level of risk appetite. So it's about being somewhere in between. Okay, so what is in a standard application? So this is just an example. So none of these first questions here, these are all bits you have to click into and answer the questions. Some of them are just ticking boxes, some of them require a narrative answer. We don't have time to go through each and every one in detail, so I'm just going to highlight a couple that are really important. None of the ones on here are scored. Okay, so you are not winning any points for these. However, one of the biggest mistakes I see people making is, because they're not scored, they neglect the project summary and the scope question. These are incredibly important. So the project summary is the first thing the assessor is going to read when he or she picks up your application. Your job in the project summary is to hit them right between the eyes with how brilliant your idea is and how we really, really need to fund this. You want the assessor to be thinking, as soon as they've read the project summary, this sounds great, I want to read more, this sounds like just the kind of thing we ought to be supporting, creating the halo effect. I mentioned scope earlier. The scope bit is incredibly important, as I said, because if you don't make a really good job of being clear about how you fit in the scope, you'll be ruled out of scope and not even assessed. Public description just allows you to do a version of the project summary that you're happy to be shared publicly if you win the grant. Okay, so there are some scored questions in this part and some unscored questions. It starts with describing the need. What is the problem in the world that your project potentially can solve? And then it goes on to, okay, the approach you're going to take, what is the innovation you're going to build that delivers against that need. So those are two really important questions. However, there are 8 more and they all have equal weighting. Okay, I see people spend lots of time and effort on the need and challenge and the approach and innovation, because that's the part we're all passionate about, isn't it? We're doing this project for a reason. We want to make a positive change in the world. We want to develop this new product or service and build our business. We really care about these bits, so we spend lots of time and effort. They are each worth a maximum of 10 marks, and so are all of the others. So then we look at who's in the team, what resources do we need? Is the team credible? Are they strong? Have they worked together before? There's a question about your awareness of the market, and we are not talking about the market for this globally is 20 billion and it's growing at X% per year. The assessors are wise to that one. You need to demonstrate that you understand the subdivisions of the market that you can realistically approach. It's the TAM and TOM and all of that good stuff. So pay some attention to that. That's the place where you need some numbers. They then want to know about what's going to come out of the end of the project and how are you going to get to market, but also about things like the wider impact beyond just the benefit to your business. How is UK PLC going to benefit societally, environmentally, those kind of things. And then there's some questions which people are tempted to skip because, oh gosh, this is boring, isn't it? Project management and risk, yada, yada, yada. This has exactly the same weighting as these really exciting bits up here. So people who score well in project submissions have gritted their teeth if they find this stuff boring, and they have done a really good job of thinking through and writing up how they're going to manage the project in practice, what risks. Then there's some stuff about added value. So that's the why do you need a grant at all? Make the case for how it wouldn't happen without it, or would be delayed or whatever. And then you have to obviously put in your costs. So that's those bits. So yeah, just to recap a few things to think about. We've mostly talked about this. It's relatively unusual to get 100% of the project funded. You will probably need match funding, so think about that, as well as thinking about the cash flow. Make sure you're clear about eligibility. Excuse me. Think about who you're going to use as subcontractors. They need to be pre-approved by Innovate UK, and be prepared for the monitoring and reporting process. There's also a thing called the Independent Accountants Report, which if you're going for a project that's anything more than £50,000, you'll need to be aware of.
Okay. When we get to the weeds of the numbers, a few things that catch people out. Innovate UK only funds a proportion of the costs of a project, doesn't fund the profits of a business. So what that means is that if you've got PAYE staff, you put their timesheets in, you put their payslips in, and we multiply the hours by the payslip, and that's the funding. If you're a director of a business and you're not paid on PAYE, you pay yourself with dividends, dividends come out of profit. And so Innovate UK don't fund profit. So you'll be shocked to find that a non-PAYE director working on an Innovate UK grant is capped at a maximum of £22 an hour, which is a bit of a shock. You have an opportunity to put in all your own overheads if you wish, but normally I would tick the box that says I just want the flat 20% overhead rate. The reason being that's relatively generous, and it means that you've got a minimum amount of receipt keeping and reporting to do. You can put in costs for your materials, but the materials must only be used on the project. I had a case recently where an outfit were building a indoor hydroponic unit which sprayed water onto the back of plants and things like that, and they found it easier to buy a copy machine and strip it down for pumps and solenoids and tanks and things like that to make it. And Innovate were very funny about the fact they'd bought themselves a coffee machine that would have value at the end of the project. We had to go around the loop on that. Some contractors must be approved by Innovate UK upfront. If you add a new subcontractor halfway through the project, you must tell Innovate UK you've got to do that. If you put in an invoice for a subcontractor they have not pre-approved, they will not pay it. The reason for that is money laundering regulations and regulations about working with people abroad in the current security situation. Capital equipment usage requires you to put up what it is you're using, how much you're using it, what you bought it for, and you've got to prove that, and your existing accountancy policies on depreciation. So it can be getting a bit technical, but nothing to worry about too much. Travel and subsistence, Innovate UK publish a limit as to what you can spend on hotels. They don't let you fly business class, and they don't let you go in first class on a train, and they do require you to keep all your receipts, even down to the last cup of coffee that you bought. They can get quite weird about TNS, I have to say. Okay, next one. Yeah, there we go. Writing an application takes longer than you think, especially if there are lots of partners. Someone's going to have to sit in a room, a dark room with a wet towel on their head and crunch through all the paperwork. If you rush it, if you leave it to the last minute, you are putting a load of effort in, but you're losing the best bits of the marks. Yeah, so don't rush it. Give yourself plenty of time before the deadline. There used to be a thing called SMART competition, which didn't mean anything. Don't think it was an acronym. In SMART, the application rates were really, really low. So it was discontinued about earlier on this year. No one's quite worked out what it's going to replace it yet. Okay, but we've been told that something will come along. So there will be, as well as all the deep technical what's the word I'm doing? Industrial strategy and thematic calls, there will be a catch-all thing, but there isn't one at the moment. So if you don't fit into government industrial strategy for what it is you want to do with your business, don't worry, something will be along. And there's a load of innovation money going out to the mayoral authorities fairly soon as well. Okay. Right, I think we've covered all of that, so let's skip that slide. But you should never apply just because you need the money. Innovate UK can smell desperation, and they're not allowed to fund businesses who are not a going concern. That rule only came in recently, and it caused a lot of problems with Innovate UK because tech startups don't have a revenue stream beyond a certain date. They have a runway, and read in some ways, tech startups don't fulfill the going concern regulations. So there's been a lot of internal manoeuvring on that, but they can see if you need the money. That's what the due diligence is all about. Okay, start looking now. Start thinking about the homework you can do before the application is ready. So what your project plan is going to be, what your risk register is going to be. Remember, the risk register gets the same amount of marks as the innovation section. Get your project team CVs together. And think about if you're going to be in a consortium bid or a bid with partners, make sure they're credible. Make sure that the Innovate UK can see that these are the right people to do that stuff. So we're running out of time, so we're going to rattle through this at some pace. Do you want to do this bit?
Yeah, this is mine, isn't it? So read the guidance carefully and then read it again. People always miss something. Sometimes important information is just buried in one short sentence halfway down a page. Now, the really, really, really important thing I want to get across to you is for each of the questions, when you're filling in the form, Innovate gives you the main question in a sentence, and then there's a load of bullet points, 5, 6, 7, 8 bullet points. If you haven't done it before, the temptation is to think those are examples of the type of thing to include. They are not. That is a checklist. Make sure your answer covers every single one of those bullets under each question. A lot of the rest of it's about clarity, but using the appendices well. Appendices are the only place where you get to put in something that isn't just plain text. You'll be asked to submit a risk register and a Gantt chart, but you often have the opportunity to put a one-pager in where you can use some diagrams to illustrate what it is you're trying to convey in words. The old cliche about a picture says 1,000 words is important, so use those well. I'll say it again, do not treat those sub-questions as examples. They are a checklist. I feel I need to say that at least 3 times whenever I give this presentation. And don't miss the opportunity that the project summary in particular provides to start the assessor off with a bit of a wow factor. Wow, this project sounds great. And, just remember these people are human. I've assessed not for Innovate UK, for other areas, and you have a big pile of things to get through and you're thinking, oh, crikey. So don't be boring. Yeah, get their attention and keep it.
And again, make it compelling. Yeah, think about the story you're going to tell. Start strong in the summary, create a narrative arc, a golden thread. Google a thing called the Pixar pitch. That'll tell you how every single Disney film is constructed, and that really kind of works to get a story across in an accessible way. If you haven't got a thing that's going to get a product to market and make money, have a logic model that shows we're going to do A, then we're going to do B, then we're going to do C, and then the money will start. So at least there's some sort of logic model. On the value for money side of things, don't go in low. Don't think if I bid low for this competition, I could apply for $1 million, but I'll apply for $500,000 because I'm more likely to get it. It doesn't work like that. What they're looking for is value for money and that the funding is likely to get to exploitation. I've talked about the credibility of your consortium, your company, make sure that is right up front and really evidence the fact that people want this. Exploitation is the most important bit for Innovate UK, particularly under their new CEO, who really wants to see businesses growing and scaling, and Innovate UK as an engine for growth. Make it compelling. This is a great question to ask. Why would anyone change what they're doing and use your kit? Yeah. Why would anyone spend money on you as opposed to someone else? Imagine the assessor's desk and there's 40 applications on it. When they go out and have a cup of tea and they come back in, yours should be the one they can remember. We're really going to have to rattle through this. The bid writing process is a job in itself. Yeah, so you really need to think about the deadline isn't going to move, building contingency, there will be risk, partners will drop out. Who's going to sign off this document? Especially if you're working with a big partner. Imagine that you're desperately badgering your partner for a signature and he can't get it because his director's on holiday and you missed the application process. Seen that, been there, seen there, done that. Okay, work out who is going to submit the actual application, who's going to press the button. Because if I thought you were doing it and you thought I was doing it, we've just wasted everybody's time for the last few months. Have a backup plan. Have another copy of this on another computer and everything as a PDF. Have a backup and don't leave it to the last minute, because I guarantee you that is when your computer will do a Microsoft update on you and you'll miss the deadline. Figure out a timeline like this. Work it backwards. Figure out who's got to do what by when, so that you manage this bid writing process, because it's a job in itself. Yeah, that's the same thing. Okay.
There we
In
go.
fact, final slide. There we go. On time. Back to you, Laura.
Thanks ever so much. That was great. Really in depth. And look, yeah, so much information there. Thank you. I'll just take the slides back in control. So I'll just set that up for one moment.
I expect everybody needs a break anyway, Laura, after all that.
Yes, we do a 2-hour version of this, and we tried to give you as much of the 2-hour version in an hour as we could. So sorry if we bombarded you.
No, it's all really useful information. Great to hear. And as I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, if you've got any questions about any of the information you've received this afternoon from our speakers, please put your questions in the Q&A bar. We're going to have a questions section at the end. And if you've got any questions about about what I'm about to cover as well, please add them in. We've got Helen. Really grateful to Helen, who's helping with the administration around the meeting today. So Helen can answer any questions, which she can immediately get back to in the chat bar as well. So please put your questions in there. Right, so moving on to the next section of this afternoon's webinar. I'm Laura Hill, and I run a business innovation support program called the Innovation Grant Mentoring Program. I've secured innovation funding from Innovate UK myself in the past, and managed innovation funding projects in the food industry. Therefore, I really understand, working with businesses in the field of innovation, the benefits that innovation funding can bring, and also how to secure funding firsthand. So now I'm really passionate about supporting businesses in the region on the pathway to secure innovation funding and have that success and get their product eventually to market. So I'm going to give you a brief overview of the program we run. If today, following that great introduction into what innovation funding is, you're based in Norfolk, Suffolk or Essex, and would like some support in your journey towards innovation funding, we manage a programme of fully funded business innovation support. And we're keen to hear from any businesses that would like to work with us. So I'll go through what we do and how to register with us, and I'm happy to take any questions on that at the end. So the Innovation Grant Mentoring Programme provides free business innovation support. So if you have a really innovative business idea and want to understand how to secure innovation funding for your business, and to accelerate an R&D project in its route to market, and would value also working with a team of experts, our innovation mentors, such as our speakers today, and our bid writing coaches, then please contact us to start discussing how we can support your business towards innovation funding. And the key thing with our business support is if you're interested in this support, please get in contact with us as soon as possible. Don't wait for that funding call to arise, because there's so much prep work we can do and work with you on in preparation for those funding calls arising. The types of funding calls that were mentioned today from Innovate UK, for example, a lot of those funding calls are only open for maybe 2, 3, 4 weeks, and there's so much prep work you can do to have a successful bid in preparation before those funding calls arise. That's a key take home, I'd say, from today is if you're interested in this support, please get in contact with us and we can get you on the programme, put you through our registration and application process for the support, and get you on the programme and start working with you to be ready for these funding calls arising. So as we've had today from Colm and Liz, innovation funding is researching and developing a new product, process or service. This project supports businesses applying for grants from innovation funding streams such as Innovate UK or any other sector relevant funding organisation. And the grants that go towards supporting innovative projects can range from thousands of pounds to millions, which really enables businesses to accelerate their innovation and route to market. Bids into these competitions are not easy, as we've mentioned today, and they can be extremely competitive, and the application forms are usually very long and complex. Therefore, our aim on this programme is our mission is to increase awareness and support businesses in the region on the route to innovation funding, and also help increase the number of applications from businesses within Essex, Norfolk and Suffolk. So what support do we offer to businesses? By application, we offer fully funded one-to-one innovation mentoring and bid writing coaching. We've got a team of experts, and they have been successfully winning innovation funding and know how to write winning bids, and they know what it takes to achieve a winning grant. The mentoring support offered by our programme is in-depth training in how to analyse and write successful applications, and will not only assist you with the project you're developing now, but the idea behind our programme is that we're giving you skills in your business and the confidence to apply into future grant applications as well. Our support is really flexible, and we can work with you from the stage you're at now and on the route towards innovation funding success. If you're not quite ready to apply for innovation funding, but have an amazing idea, we can support with our early stage concept support, which is delivered by our mentors and can lead on to innovation funding assistance, helping you select the right funding call to apply into and actually working on that application. We also run innovation funding webinars and workshops such as today's session. We run these throughout the year, focusing on different topics, or sometimes we focus on a particular funding call that might be open and has a lot of interest. In terms of eligibility, we work We would be pleased to hear from any highly innovative business based within Norfolk, Suffolk or Essex from any industry sector. We ideally connect with businesses ahead of funding calls to enable us to onboard you onto our programme, and for those businesses new to innovation funding, we work with you in advance to help develop your proposal in readiness for calls that will then come up. As I mentioned, the funding calls are normally only live for a few weeks. We can also offer advice on the right funding call to consider. Our team are used to evaluating these calls and understand all the eligibility criteria, which can be complex for businesses to work through in isolation. In terms of the innovation stage you're at, we're happy to work with businesses new to innovation, businesses that need support with their innovation proposals, that maybe have got something together but not quite sure if it's entirely ready and ready for innovation funding, and also businesses that have previously applied into innovation funding and been unsuccessful in achieving innovation funding grants. We can help you as well. Also, if you're a business that perhaps has had success in the past in innovation funding, maybe with a smaller grant, but now looking towards Innovate UK and wanting to apply for a larger grant, then we're happy to help you on that transition from going for smaller grants to larger grants, because it can be quite different. And yeah, we can help you on that journey towards innovation funding success. Just wanted to give you a quick example of a business that we've worked with on the programme. So this programme has been established for the last 5 years, and we've supported a number of businesses, many businesses, towards innovation funding. One of the businesses based in Norfolk at the Research Park in Norwich that we've worked with is iBoxit. They had no previous experience in applying into Innovate UK funding, and they came to the project and they had received a couple of small grants from one of the local universities. So they knew that there was interest from an organisation in what they were doing, but they wanted to move it forward and thought that possibly Innovate UK would be the way of doing that. So they connected with our support programme. We onboarded them onto the programme. They applied and were successful, and we connected them with an innovation mentor and also a bid writing coach. They worked with the mentor for a couple of months, and they were looking at their proposal and developing it in readiness for a call arising. The Innovate UK Better Food for All Fund came up, and I think from memory, this funding call is a significant funding call. And the business weren't sure really whether it was one for them to go work towards, as it was quite a large fund and their first Innovate UK project, should they put in for such a large fund. But having working with their mentor, it gave them the confidence to realise that actually this fund which had arisen was a really good match to what they were working on, and they should go for it. So they worked at that proposal, and we brought in a bid writing coach to support them as well. On that journey, they went back and forth on each question with the bid writing coach to ensure that the right message was getting across in their application. The application had that wow factor, as Liz mentioned earlier, and the assessor would really get what they were trying to do. They fully addressed all areas of the application with their mentor and bid writing coach. And from this went in, and they then heard back a couple of months later that they had won an £850,000 grant. It was a collaborative project with a local university, but a lot of the money was going to the business as well, and they were developing an environmentally friendly shipping solution for the food industry. This was an amazing achievement, and the business was really supported by the team on our programme to deliver that successful application and achieve that grant. They're now in the middle of this 3-year project, and it's having amazing results. The way in which the projects move forward, it wouldn't have been able to without the grant money behind it. So we're really proud to have supported iBoxit in their innovation journey, and following that, they're keen to look at other funding calls that can move their innovative project on further. So it's given a real appetite for progressing this product, this innovative product. I'll now move on to the next slide, and just to give you a flavour of the work we've done. So as I mentioned, the support we provide is fully funded business innovation support. It's by application. Over the last few years, we've supported over 400 businesses. We've had them registered to our webinars and workshops, such as today. We've been focusing on different topics, and these sessions have enabled businesses to understand much more about innovation funding and whether they should move forward with that within their business. And as a programme, we have delivered 80 businesses have received the one-to-one innovation mentoring or bid writing coaching from our projects team of our team of experts. And as a small programme, we have supported businesses bringing in £3.1 million of innovation funding into the region, which has been a privilege to be supporting businesses in across all sorts of innovative areas within the region. So really pleased to share that information with you. So I think we'll move over to the question part of the webinar now. So on this slide here as well, while we run through the questions, I've got the QR code to our webpage, which will provide more information on our service, and also a link through to register, and also our contact details are on the screen as well. So if you've got any questions post this session, please do get in contact with us, because we'd be happy to chat through and sort of work out how we might be able to support you on your journey towards innovation funding. Right, so okay, let's move forward with the questions. I know Helen, who works in our team, has been supporting on the question side of things. Helen, have we got many questions coming through in the chat bar?
We have a couple. I mean, to start with, there's one which is, what's the most efficient way to look for grants? Is there a newsletter or a sector-specific source that businesses can go to?
So yeah, there definitely is. If you go onto the UKRI Business Connect website and you find the way to your sectoral specialist at the sector area, they do a newsletter and they'll tell you about forthcoming grants in your sector. So UK Business Connect put those newsletters out.
Okay, also we have Innovate UK funding seems to have been a bit thin on the ground recently. Any idea what the funding picture looks like for the next year?
Yeah, so the reason it's been a bit thin on the ground has been because there was an election last year, and then there's been 2 budgets. So that puts a bit of a pause in for Innovate UK while they wait to hear what their budget is. They've got things ready to go. As Colm said earlier, they launched the new Women in Innovation competition whilst Rachel Reeves was still on her feet delivering the budget yesterday. They had that ready, and the moment it was announced, it went live. So I would expect there to be some new competitions coming out in the next weeks. So yeah, this is likely to be quite an exciting time, hopefully.
Can I just add in there that, yeah, absolutely agree with Liz, but we're seeing a few more funding calls coming up now, and yeah, so I think if you are thinking around innovation funding for the new year, we never know exactly what's going to come up, but if it's something which you have in your plan for your business and you'd like the support, I'd say get in contact with our programme now. Our programme is, we bring businesses on a rolling application period process, sorry. So if you get in contact with us, spaces are first come, first served, so best get in contact as soon as, so you're ready with the right team of experts behind you to support you on that journey.
Okay, we've got a couple more. Does Innovate UK worry about the use of AI in writing applications?
Innovate UK have had an interesting approach to the use of large language models. They were initially very anti. They put out a load of guidance to folk like us saying, oh, you really mustn't do that. a lot of my colleagues were saying, "Oh, what are we going to do? How are we going to run our business like this?" I said to them, "Don't worry. That advice was rescinded within 24 hours." So Innovate UK are up and down on this, but in reality, they don't. There's no prescription. They won't say you mustn't do it, but the assessors read lots of application forms, and they can probably spot the ones where people have just chucked it into a large language model without really thinking about it too much. So I've got no issue with using them. Innovate UK have issued no prescription, but like any other tool, use it correctly and put a person in the loop to make sure you're just not regurgitating stuff onto Innovate's application form without thinking about it.
Yeah, I would say you need to spend time and effort on the prompting for each question. Read what it comes out with a very critical eye. Never outsource your thinking to AI. Do the thinking yourself. And the other thing I would say, if anyone is thinking about using AI, just be aware if you're on a standard free account with your AI large language model of choice, then your data is probably being shared with the provider, OpenAI, if it's ChatGPT. So just be aware of that before you put anything confidential in there.
Okay, we've got another question. What other government departments and agencies offer innovation grants?
There's quite a few. The important thing is to keep an eye on the IFS system, because they if they're coming through there, then they'll all show up. But certainly DEFRA do quite a bit through the Innovate UK system. Department for Transport on the electric vehicle sustainable transport side. DCMS, as Colm mentioned earlier, running the Create Growth programme. Seen any others?
Yeah, absolutely. And there's an almost parallel architecture with the defence and security outfit who are bringing together a bunch of strands into what's called a Defence Innovation Hub. So keep an eye out for that. And if you're in the defence and security landscape, then I would make yourself known to the Defence and Security Accelerator. They have a regional rep for the East of England, Vicky, and she'll come and talk to you about what you want to do and what the funding opportunities are from that side of the world.
Can I just pick up on sorry, Helen, can I just pick up, EDI was questioned earlier on. So in the context we were talking about, it stands for Equality, Diversity and Inclusion. The reason we flag it is partly, as Stephen's just said in a comment, you know, it's important to be clear about that element when you're looking at the added value of your project. But there's also a specific funding stream within Innovate UK. So the Women in Innovation programme that's just been announced, that comes under the EDI team. And what they've been doing in recent years is looking at the data for which groups are underrepresented in terms of winning innovation funding and doing some targeted competitions. So Women in Innovation is an example of that. They did run something called Young Innovators a few years ago. That then got rolled into a competition called Unlocking Potential, which is actually where I got my grant from. We don't have any intel at the moment about another round of Unlocking Potential. It's certainly not imminent if they're going to do it at all. I think they're still analysing the outcomes from the last one. But yes, Women in Innovation is part of that area.
Okay, one for Laura, I think. Is the coaching service available for KTP applications?
Yeah, absolutely. We can also put you in contact with the Innovate UK business team that deal with the KTP and the regional advisor. So yeah, absolutely. Please get in contact with us on that, and we can help support. But with KTPs, the applications is normally led by the university with the business working on it. So we can support in your element of that application, which will then go forward from the university. Have we got any further questions, Helen? I'm not sure if there's anything else in the chat bar. I've got so many screens on, I can't see all the chat. The chat.
That's right. Just as I think they're finished, I get more questions through. So just having a look. Naomi has asked whether it's too late to get support for the Women Innovation Grant.
So support from this programme, no, please get in contact with us and we can have that conversation about where you're at, and yeah, we'll put the link in the chat bar again for those, or through the QR code you can find the link as well, to be able to register the programme, or send us an email and we'll pick up with you after the session.
And then I'm going to say finally, Trevor has asked a couple of questions in the Q&A, one of which is specifically, how about older workers trying to contribute beyond pension age as underrepresented?
Good question. That would be one for the Innovate UK EDI team rather than for us. I don't know what their policy is on that. I think there was a very wide drawing of the concept of underrepresented for unlocking potential. They basically encouraged you to self-identify as being part of an underrepresented group, and they gave a bunch of sort of examples. But as I say, I've not heard anything about them running that competition again anytime very soon. And thank you, Stephen, for the kind comments in the chat.
Someone's asked a clarification about the geographic area we cover. I've answered that specifically against the comment, but just to confirm, it's Norfolk, Suffolk and Essex for the mentoring programme.
Excellent, thanks, Helen. Have we got any more coming through? I think we're just about there. I think we're drawing to a close with it being 5 to 2. I don't want to keep the meeting going on, but if there's any more questions, please get in contact with us on the email on the slide, or if you want to add it to the chat bar, and then we'll get back to you after the meeting. So I hope you've all enjoyed the session today, and it's been useful for you. We'd love to hear your feedback on how the webinar ran, and your thoughts on the content. There's a QR code here on the screen. If you could click through to our feedback form, we'll also put a link in the chat bar. If you could just put that in, Helen, that would be amazing. And please, give us some feedback, because we run these sessions focusing on different topics quite regularly. We've got some sessions planned for the new year, so it would be great to get your feedback so we can run the sessions that are useful for the business community. Okay, so just to say thanks ever so much